Is a great honor to introduce Craig Lund, the president and founder of MTI, up on the stage. We could all welcome Craig.
Good morning, everybody. Let's see, I'm taller than everybody else, so we got to get into the camera for you guys there. Come on in. This morning I'm going to be talking about a topic that was different than what is on the schedule a few days ago. So if you were here to see my friend Evie, expecting to hear about her company, DeGero, I apologize, you're going to have to deal with me instead. I sound a little stuffy, been fighting with some allergies, so usually I sound a lot more like Celine Dion, so this is the voice you're getting today. I run a company called MTI. We just turned 15 this year. I've been at the intersection of talent and brand for my entire career. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a headhunter. I specialize in marketing. I've worked with over 150 organizations in the last 15 years, working with placing people just like you. I do happen to be working on a customer success role in case anybody's looking. If you come from the market research space, speak to me after, and if you need to hide somewhere so the boss can't see, we'll figure out how to make that work. So what I wanted to talk to you about from a talent angle is an angle that's often forgotten when it comes to the customer experience. We're often thinking about customer first, and the front door to your organization is the talent route. So the hiring experience, if that's not congruent with all of the work you've done to create a great customer experience, you're potentially exposing yourself to risk. So I want to talk about the CX mirror. And how you recruit is a direct reflection of your brand, and your future customers are your future candidates. And in 2026, a significant number of your organizations are quietly destroying your employer brand and your customer brand by over-delegating hiring decisions to AI and automation. And in some cases, you can't actually defend or even expose yourself legally to some of these repercussions. So I'll ask you guys, have you ever experienced being screened out by a system and you knew you were actually the perfect fit? Yeah, it's a pretty common situation. So now hold on to that feeling. It was a pretty shitty feeling, wasn't it? You didn't even get a chance to pitch yourself. You didn't even get a chance to show your true credentials and show who you could really be and how you could deliver for this organization. Now here's the thing. You as a candidate might be an existing customer already. So what do you think that that's going to do to your brand? So up here I have a diagram. This is what I call the TX resonance loop. If you think about something that resonates when it's a signal that goes out and it bounces back, it's like an echo that comes back quieter. Something resonates, it comes back louder. It tells you you're doing the right thing. Now on the left-hand side here, we have the talent loop. This is the loop that we often exclude. On the right-hand side, we have the customer experience loop. Now, if you think about people discovering a job opportunity and finding out that this company that they love or a company that they are a customer of, that they'd love to be able to work for, they start going through this journey. And the 2 points at which there's a major amount of risk is at point 2 and point 3. Critical aspect of when you decide to hand off automation, AI, to this process. And the second being that human moment when you actually hand things off from the automation system into the actual interview system, experiencing people and culture and what that organization is going to be like. So when we're looking at our customer experience, the talent experience, those are the 2 points that I'm going to encourage you to start to really look at. And a lot of companies are not doing that. And ultimately, if things go right on the left side, we get to the cultural convergence in the middle. That's where that loop keeps going over and over, because once they become, irrespective of if you hire them or not, if it was a positive experience, they're going to continue to remain a customer. But I can tell you that if you had a really shitty experience trying to get a job, even though you were qualified and you didn't get a true shot, you're potentially not going to want to be a customer anymore for that company. So when we think about the three resonance states, so these are the three states that almost everybody, one of your companies, is in one of these three places. Amplified resonance is a great place to be. Ignore that, I don't know what that is, that's not me. Your amplified resonance is the candidate experience. They feel respected, they feel heard, even if they're not hired. This is a good place to be, and you generally know when you're in that space. Now, dissonant feedback, you know you're in this space because it shows up in places like Glassdoor and Indeed in reviews, and your reputation externally as an employer or as a hiring experience gets broadcast. That's a great exposure for your brand from a risk standpoint. But a big majority of you are actually in that middle, the frequency vacuum. The problem about the frequency vacuum is that there's no signal. You don't get any feedback. It's just quiet. So we love feedback. Feedback, when it's negative or positive, gives us tools to make changes and impact a difference. But that's not going to happen when you're stuck in the middle. So if you had to ask your HR, which frequency are we broadcasting as an organization? So I want to talk about this problem because it is enormous. Even if you go back to 2024, AI was managing 30 million applications, and at that point, already triggering hundreds of complaints. The trust gap is really, really big. So from a Greenhouse report, we see that 70% of hiring managers already trust AI to make faster and better decisions. But the reality is that only 8% of job seekers think that AI is doing a good job. That delta, that 62-point delta, is enormous. And again, how do we figure out how to deal with that? But this is the punchline of trying to achieve efficiency. Despite all of the investments that we've made in AI, we've seen in 2025 an increase, 60% of organizations, the hiring is slowing down. It is not getting faster. There is still too much reliance and too much expectation and too much confidence in these tools when we haven't really figured out how to create a lot of protections around that. If we look at the regulatory side of things, the EU, as we know, is always the first to come to crack down on this. They've already flagged hiring with AI as high risk. So as of August 2026, we're going to start to see levies and fines for organizations that are not putting protections in place. Already in New York City, the local law 144, that is creating mandatory bias audits so that your systems, that you have to prove that you are looking at your systems and the systems you use to hire to make sure there are no biases in place. And then just the beginning of this year, 2026, there's a massive age discrimination lawsuit, and this was in Kistler versus Eightfold AI in California. And that's essentially targeting them, saying that they've discriminated against people based on their age. And of course, if you're a candidate and companies are throwing AI tools to fish you out and manage your application, how do you deal with that? You fight fire with fire, AI with AI. So candidates are doing this too. So there's something called white fonting. And if you don't know what that is, it's how people are gaming the system. They take their resume, they take the job description, and they paste the job description in their resume. They make all of the copy white. So when we look at it, we see just their resume. We don't see the hidden job description. AI goes, winner, winner, chicken dinner, we got a perfect candidate. And the client will finally get that. Sorry, I keep saying client because I'm a headhunter, but the hiring manager finally will see that and they'll go, okay, this doesn't look like a perfect candidate. Of course, that's going to erode trust a little bit for them in the system, but maybe that's a good thing. Then, of course, there's things like, I'm not sure if you're on Instagram or TikTok, but I see these ads all the time where some young person says, hey, I'm tired of the job search. I'm going to use AI to do the job search for me, send out millions of applications, and I'm going to get a job tomorrow. You know, we know that's not how things really work, but we also know how marketers work when it comes to making these ads. So here's a quick example, and I apologize, the quality of the video might be off, but hopefully Stan's fixed it, and we'll see what happens.
So I just quit my job and landed a fully remote position in January. So let's talk job searching sites and the ones that didn't work for me, and then the one that actually did. So the ones that I didn't have good luck with were Indeed and LinkedIn, which is really unfortunate because those were always top of my list of where I'd go to find jobs, especially Indeed. That's where I found my previous job. But unfortunately for me, I think they're just swarmed with bots and fake postings. Or I was just like endlessly applying manually and getting ghosted. Don't get me wrong, this is just something I ran into. So Better Apply is the one that got me my fully remote job. That's it, like go now. I've been looking for a job for several months now, so trust me, I know the job market. It's crazy and it's hard out there, but this is something that worked for me. You fill out a quick quiz about what you want, role type, salary, remote, or hybrid, and then Better Apply finds real jobs, writes custom resumes for each one, and auto applies for you. I didn't have to spend hours tweaking applications or wondering if I already applied somewhere. It just worked. I just hope this can be helpful for you, and let me know your experience and what you're seeing out there. And good luck.
Bon chance, indeed. So that's the landscape that we're doing, and so I'd like to talk about that and what this actually means for you as employers, as the brand guardians. So there's a whole bunch of risks that you can think about when it comes to the TX experience. A big one, of course, is brand risk, ghosting. Not candidate ghosting, which is also a thing, but we're at a 3-year high right now for organizations that literally are creating a black hole for you to send a resume to. And you're not hearing anything. Of course, that's a broken brand moment. Legal risk, I talked about that earlier. That 2026 age discrimination lawsuit, class action lawsuit, is not an outlier. It is a signal. It is telling you, you guys need to be on top of this. Cultural risk. Now, we know this about AI. AI is great at creating homogeneity, but this room is full of people with all different backgrounds, neurodivergence, and AI is not designed to capture those outliers. And so when it comes to creating empathy and new perspective, you're potentially losing out on talent that are going to have those traits. Talent debt. Talent debt is just the same as tech debt. So if you imagine if you have a tech stack that is aging, you're not updating it, the longer you wait to make those investments, the more expensive, the bigger problem, the larger the mountain it becomes to overcome. And in talent debt, it's the same thing. You're potentially also losing great talent, and guess where they're going? They're going to your competitors. So we'll go back to you. I would like to know, how many of you are actually applying CX principles to your talent experience? The journey mapping, empathy, friction reduction, and whatnot for how they recruit. Anybody know they're doing that? Okay, not a lot of hands. Great. So that's your gap. And here's what's interesting, though, because we're sitting in a room full of people that are arguably the most suited to solving this problem. All you need to do is take the frameworks you use for your customers and turn those inwards towards your talent experience. So let's talk about why the human touch is still so powerful. In EQO had their report, The State of Employee Referral Programs in 2026. They talk about job boards and their success rate of finding talent is around 2 to 5%. I mean, if you know how expensive it is to post jobs and on LinkedIn, Indeed, and all of that, that's not a great number. It's great for me because it means that people come to me and then hire me and as the expert and solve the problem. And I'd like to think that even the next stat I'm better performing at, but 28.2% of employee referrals are hired. And the 82% retention rate is a great reason for you to be looking at how to create programs internally and really support them because they are going to drive such high success rates. And the big reason why is if you think about user-generated content, people prefer it. We don't like these sharp patina on a corporate video talking about a great job and the cultural experience. When you do a handheld reel, like the ones you might have seen on the app today for the conference, who is this person? They're going to speak about something, or I want to meet them later on. You're more likely to do that, and then if you see some really tight corporate video. And that's why the referral model is so powerful, and making sure that you're leveraging that is also a great way for people to meet people. And you see, hey, you're the culture that fits into that organization. You're somebody I identify with. You have values that I share, and I can definitely see myself working with people like you. The other thing is, too, is as much as you go through that entire process, if you have a poor experience, you are not going to be happy. You are going to decline an offer. 52% of people say if they have a really poor experience in the hiring model, they are going to say no. Whereas 76% of people say yes, because they had such a positive experience going through meeting everybody and learning about the company and having a really positive experience from start to finish. And by the way, that last fact was from resume.org. So let's look at our three-pillar talent audit. So if you want to think about the questions that you could ask yourselves to kind of go, where is my organization stand right now as far as what we're trying to achieve? You're looking at the journey integrity. Have you mapped out the candidate journey? Identify those human moments where people come in and actually start engaging. Brand protection. Does every automated email reflect your brand dignity? You know, there's nothing worse than getting one of those emails, those rejection letters, and you can, especially if you haven't even been reviewed, you just get that automatic email and you don't know why. And if that tone is just not sensitive and lacking of empathy, then that's an opportunity to disenfranchise somebody with your brand. The human-led closing, if you think about the resonance loop, this is where you hand things off to the human and we start having those actual conversations and the interviews and making sure that where is the real person showing up in that loop. This is vital for you to fix and figure out what's happening with your problem or knowing whether you're doing the right thing. If you know all of these questions, whether you are getting the good answers or bad, again, you're getting the signals that are going to give you the tools to make some changes. Okay, so here's your Monday challenge, and if actually is Wednesday, you could do this tomorrow. If you go to your HR department and you say, hey, can you show me the last 5 people that we rejected, and would any of these people have been great customers for us? So the human edge, this is strategy. You cannot build great customer experiences with teams assembled by a system designed without nuance, empathy, or cultural fit. So if I think about the best customer experience organizations that I've been out there who have figured this out, it's not because HR read a report, it's because leaders decided that they knew that TX is the front door to the organization and the first opportunity for people to have an experience with this company. So some brands that are doing a really great job, we're in one right now. Hilton is world-renowned for their talent experience. They've won the Global Talent Experience Award for a number of years in a row. If there's any wine drinkers here, E.J. Gallo is one of the largest winemakers in North America. Even though they're American, we don't get to drink it at the moment. Hopefully soon, if things get better back down south. Another one would be the Hoag Health System on the healthcare area. They're one of the largest health networks in LA. And then Schneider Electric is another global organization. They've won this in EMEA, in Asia Pacific, and North America for the last 6 years running as well. So that's the end of my talk, but I want to make sure that you guys leave with the opportunity to think about, is the talent experience your missing journey? My name's Craig, happy to answer any questions. Thank you. No questions? Hi.
Thanks. We were talking earlier about essentially the arms race between employers and employees when it comes to AI. Employees or future employees are turning to apps like the one that you showed us to send out more and more resumes. and in turn, employers are having to resort to AI to go through the hundreds of resumes they're getting. What are some strategies that you've used to kind of combat that from an employer point of view?
I would have to ask you to say that again. I'm behind the speakers there. I couldn't hear what you were saying.
So we've got employees that are using, or future employees that are using AI to send out a bunch of resumes to a bunch of companies. In turn, you've got employers that are getting those resumes. They have hundreds of applicants on any given job. In order to not use AI to go through those, how can we break the cycle as employers, basically?
Okay, so what you were saying is basically we're dealing with this huge volume. How do we manage that? That's why we're using these tools.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's a really good question.
Use AI, basically.
And then there's a couple of factors you have to think about because it's not a one answer because everybody's in different regulatory environments and there are different rules and requirements. If you're a global organization, you might be facing tools that are EI regulations or North American regulations. So it's not an easy answer. And so that's where you really need to create a lot of, you need to create groups internally that can actually look at this problem and make sure that you are looking at all of your exposures to create which systems are going to help you do that. Once you've identified what your risks are, that's ultimately how you're going to determine how far along the talent loop you can actually go. So again, unfortunately, as we know, when we're in the Wild West with technology, there's so many new tools, there's so many AI, APIs, integrations and whatnot. They don't make it easy for you to figure out if that's going to be a perfect box that's going to fix your organization's issue. And it takes a lot of work to kind of figure that problem out. It's not the answer you want, but unfortunately, that's the nature of, we're still in the Wild West with AI. Any other questions? One more? I have to make sure I come close to you so I can hear you.
Hi. So the video that you showed with the job searcher, the one that,
Yep.
which was the app that she went to? So she went, like, into
There's multiple. I can't remember. It was so
Okay.
small at the top.
Are they Canadian
I'll find
though,
out for
or
you
American,
after.
or?
It looked like an American company. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a Canadian.
Yeah, it was called like Job Seeker AI.
Okay.
But I feel like there's a whole bunch of skinned systems. They all
Yeah.
seem to be the same, and they seem to be re-added. So.
Are they used a lot in Canada, or are they more? in
Well,
the States?
I was getting the ad served here in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Any last questions? Over here?
Hi, Craig.
Hi.
In a precision-driven business, what is the real business risk in the next 12 to 24 months if we ignore the CX mirror and allow gaps in our candidacy to experience to shape our market perceptive of our reliability?
Okay. Can you just repeat the question because I didn't quite hear that? Sorry, I'm hearing impaired. This is great for question and answer, right?
Okay, in a precision-driven business,
Yep.
what is the real business risk in the next 12 to 24 months if we ignore the CX mirror and allow the gaps in our candidacy experience to shape how
No,
I wrote
that's
down,
okay.
but essentially how it will shape, like if we ignore it as a CEO, we just ignore that CX gap, how.
Yeah, I mean, when I talked about, like, at the end, the companies that are doing really well at this, they're going top down. It's coming from leadership. In a precision-based business, it's ultimately analysis paralysis. You're going to wait and wait and wait, but at some point you draw a line in the sand, and then you've got to decide how to go forward on the projects. The reality is, the longer you take to actually address it, create the guardrails for how you can use these systems, the further you're going to get behind. So again, when that comes top down, it's a lot easier because sometimes there's a lot of regulatory hurdles to get over. There's a lot of exposure. You got legal who wants to get involved as well. These things don't necessarily move as quick as we'd like them to. And oftentimes, we're so focused on the customer, this seems like the last thing we want to fix. But that's one of the reasons why it creates a lot of of issues. You don't want to end up being the person with the class action lawsuit because everybody hears about it, and you guys have heard about it. It's one of the first major lawsuits we're hearing about, and everybody's going to remember about the first one rather than all the ones that follow. Hi.
I don't know if you can answer, but have you heard of any studies around how efficient hiring with AI really is, like in terms of the final candidates being hired, and are they actually are they better than the candidates hired without AI in the previous years? Like, has anyone ever
Yeah,
that?
so we talked about that. That right now, no, because 60% of companies are saying that things are much slower now. So the myth of efficiency with AI, also because we over-rely on it, we have too much trust. I feel like we're starting to tap the brakes now. We're starting to see a lot more distrust with AI. You were getting tired of AI slop showing up. And in general, that is starting to filter across organizations and their attitudes towards it, really slowing down, tapping the brakes, and going, okay, let's spend time figuring out what AI needs to do in our organization rather than letting every department kind of play around with different tools. Because right now, the efficiency is not there. I mean, it will get there. I think people are still trial and error, but there is opportunity for it. But again, no one's looking at the full talent experience, and they're just looking at the outcome, which is bums in seats, let's hire somebody. And they're not really looking at reputational risk, legal risk, and compliance risk, and all of that other stuff. Unfortunately, EU governments, New York City governments, Canadian governments are going to start cracking down on that. And so whether you like it or not, you're going to be forced to look at how you use these tools.
Yeah, it's just a little bit off topic. I just want to know, like you mentioned, the retention is very important, like for the organizations. Is there any tool that organizations are using to gauge the performance and utilize AI on that for promotion or retention, moving the employees internally? Because we see there is a lot of biasness going on, right? So is AI being used so that you can calibrate the employee better than, just based on human understanding?
Yeah, there's no one tool right now. Again, there's still so many options. And if you think about any time this new technology comes, we're kind of in that first gap where everybody's flooding the market with integrations, AIs. A lot of those are using APIs with the big platforms like Gemini and Claude and whatnot. So all of those are eventually going to go away. So right now, it's just too many options for people to say there's one or two that are doing a really good job. So the answer is, like, it really depends on your organization, your exposures, your space, your industry, what commitments you have to government regulation. So the answer is, there's nothing currently that's going to make it one-stop shop. All right, I think we're at time. But I really appreciate you guys. I'm not usually in front of a group like you. I'm very involved with the American Marketing Association. So it's usually a group full of different marketers and not just one segment. But I mean, that makes it apropos. But I really enjoyed being here with you today. And I hope this was something that you found valuable and you could take back to your organizations and take care of this little bit of a talent gap. Thank you.